This is Stephanie Washer, and this is part 2 of Module 1, Networking Today. We are going to go over 1.5 through 1.9, Internet Connections, Reliable Networks, Network Trends, Network Security, and the IT Professional. So in Internet Connections, this is just a section to kind of go over all the different Internet connections and to show the difference between home users and business class users. And it definitely, organizations will need faster connections. They might have IP phones, they might use video conferencing. In fact, just about everybody right now is using video conferencing. And so we can show the difference between the two. So here's the home small office options. We've got dial-up, satellite, cellular, DSL cable. You probably have one of these options. The thing that is not on here that I use is line of sight wireless. And so it doesn't necessarily use a satellite, but it has a dish on top of basically the one that I point to is a local farmer. He's got a leg on his grain setup at his house, and it points to that. So sometimes they point to water towers. It just depends on where you're located. And at my house, there's quite a few trees, so we had to go through. I contacted 2 different companies and ended up finding one that I could actually get a line of sight to. So I've got this nice dish in the front yard pointing northeast. Anyway. So cable, DSL, cellular, satellite. Just depends on what you need and what is available in your area. Dial-up was not an option for me. It is very low bandwidth, and I could not get anything done for grad school. And that was 10, 15 years ago. So that was actually more than that. It was 15 years ago. So, and then I tried cellular, same thing. It was just such a problem because I didn't have great cell service where I live. So it just depends on what your needs are and what's available in your area. I want to say quite a few people have cable. Then if we talk about business internet connections, you've got business DSL, then you've got Ethernet WAN, dedicated lease line, we've got satellite still, so there's all sorts of different options for business. But the basic concept is higher bandwidth, and you might actually have or will have a dedicated connection and managed services. In a business that might not be as big, or they might share an area, that might have, they might share a dedicated connection. So it just depends on what you have and what your needs are again. Converged network. So in the past, each message had its own network. We had our computer network, we had our telephone network, we had our broadcast network. Now, everything is converged. So we have, here's the example where everything's separate. And then in this slide, everything is converged onto one network. And then it, goes over the internet. And in order to do that, we have rules and standards and different policies in place for that to communicate all along that network infrastructure. And we'll go over all of those. But we have data, voice, and video all on one line, and that's called a converged network. There's a video on Packet Tracer, so we will use Packet Tracer in class. There's a video on that, and I actually made my own video on how to download and install. Then there's getting started in Packet Tracer, so you can go through that as well. And then there's a Packet Tracer 157 or something. I think it's 157. Anyway, that one is not required for this class. So if you open up that Packet Tracer and you look at it and you're like, oh, this is too much, close it. I think the number is 237. So I recommended that one because there's not as much going on in it. There's a lot visually going on in 157. So whatever you feel like, you open it up and you can make it work, then that's fine. But if not, go to the one in the assignment. Because eventually you'll have to do 237. I did not assign the one from module 1. So on to reliable networks. There are some basic characteristics of reliable networks. In a reliable network, we want our information to be up and ready and running great all the time, right? So we want the utmost in quality. So we want fault tolerance, scalability, security, and quality of service. We want all of that for a reliable network. If we talk about each one of these individually, fault tolerance means that we have redundant paths or even redundant equipment in order for everything to work correctly. So we have this example where we have a couple of routers that are connected to the internet, but they have redundant connections. So you can see this router is connected to 2 different routers. So when this router goes down, it can connect to this router to get out to the internet. So then this LAN doesn't go down. These IP phones won't go down because this router knows to switch to this connection if this one is being worked on, or if it goes down, or Lord knows what. So that's just a redundant connection. So redundant connection, fault tolerance setup so that users won't realize that there was a problem. Only the IT department would realize there's a problem. And this is only, this redundancy can only be implemented by packet switched, not circuit switched. Scalability. Whenever designing a network, you always want to make sure that you add in scalability, meaning you add in the ability to add in users, applications. You want to have, when I built a network a while ago, this was a while ago, and when I say a while ago, like 15 years ago, we built a new school, and we did not have much of a budget. Like, the budget was very, very low. But what I tried to do was at least get switches that had more ports than what we needed. So for example, they wanted to get me a 24 port switch. Well, there was only 22 ports were being used, would have been used. And so I was trying to get them to get me at least a bigger switch so that if we added computers or users, that it would be easier to add them right away. If they didn't, I did talk them into at least getting me an extra switch, or I can't remember exactly. I think it was a separate module, but somehow I ended up with all of the extra ports that I needed, and because really in a couple years I did have to add. They wanted to add. In the beginning, they're like, oh, there's only going to be 1 computer in every room. Well, that changed very quickly. They started adding 3 or 4 computers in every room. So it was a good thing that I thought about that, because it wasn't that far down the line that they started adding computers in every room. And we were able to network them very, very quickly. We didn't have to wait for a switch to come in. So it's just some of the things to think about. Quality of service. You just want to make sure that you have certain items such as voice over IP will have priority, and you want that to have a good quality. You don't want to have issues in communication while on the phone. So you want to make sure that you have quality of service set up and in place, and for the router to manage that priority traffic, and to have voice or video that doesn't have glitches in it. So that's just all we want, right? We want the best. We don't want to have to wait for things. We don't want to have glitches in anything. We don't want to have a static, not necessarily static per se, but in a metaphorical sense. Network security. In our network, you want to think of physical security of the hardware. You don't want people to actually be able to get into your server closet and touch the equipment, because that is a huge problem. And then you also want to make sure you have security in place that they can't get to your information over the network. So you just want to make sure you have all of the proper security items set up and protected. So you have software and hardware security. And make sure you have protection from any unauthorized access. So you'll set up confidentiality, you'll have integrity set up, and you'll have availability. So those are the things that you're going to think about when you set up anything. And we will talk about confidentiality, we'll talk about authorization and authentication, we'll talk about all of that later. The next one is network trends. This one is ever-changing, really, ever-changing. BYOD, everybody brings their own device. They have it connected to the wireless network. There are some places, like some of the schools, you can't really connect to the wireless. I mean, if we had every high school student at one of the high schools that I work at connect, it would be insane. And then there's online collaboration and video communications. Right now, a lot of Zoom and Google Meet have seen a surge in use because of everybody working from home, or I know next week we go back to school I work part-time at a local high school, and we go back to school, but we have to go to the school and sit in our classrooms on Zoom. So, you know, they're going to make sure that they provide good service for us at the school, and we will be on, but we still have to be on a Zoom link so that we can properly follow the social distancing guidelines. Then we have cloud computing, a couple other things too in networking. Cloud computing, cloud services is big, but other items that are pretty big out there are big data. And you can just go through and search for the big trends. They change all the time. Currently, I'm in a doctoral program for cybersecurity, and there are so many things. You've got artificial intelligence. You've got, like I said already, big data, Internet of Things, or IoT devices. And they just explain BYOD right here. I think we all understand what bring your own device means. And it could be anything that we connect, that we bring to another area and we connect to the network. Online collaboration, we've probably used that before. And of course, since this is a Cisco class, I didn't even mention Cisco WebEx. We use Zoom at Rock Valley, but Cisco WebEx is fine too. It works pretty well. It's more secure than some of the other methods. So there's that option as well. And you can, I think we've all used this, where you can send messages through the collaboration link. You can post images, post videos. You can share quite a bit. In fact, when Eric and I do our podcast videos, we use Zoom, and we are sharing things back and forth in that. Especially when Eric is telling me hey, there's a good deal on headphones. Video communication, we know this. Video call, video conferencing, Cisco telepresence is just another one. So there is a video on this. You're more than welcome to look through it. I'm not making it mandatory. And then there's cloud computing. Cloud computing is one that you're going to want to know. And we actually have some more classes on kind of cloud computing, and not necessarily cloud computing itself, but how things work in the cloud. We have VMware and virtualization that we talk about too. So we try and get our server classes and our virtualization classes to kind of talk about cloud computing as well. Basically, Rock Valley College and some of the organizations, like the students at Rock Valley, use Google Drive, and the instructors use Office. And all of the Office 365, that's all in the cloud. Google is all in the cloud as well. And you just go online to reach and access all of your information. So the personal files, the backup, all of that is all on the internet. So we have to go to, if we want to get our files, we have to go to Google. So drive.google.com. If you want to get your mail, mail.google.com. So, so on and so forth. And if smaller companies that can't afford their data centers, they can actually lease a data center. Some of this information is actually much cheaper in the cloud for these smaller organizations. Larger organizations that want control over their information, they can have their own cloud and their own version and set it up themselves. Sometimes it's just easier to, even if you are a larger organization, to have somebody else manage it for you that knows what they're doing. So there's public clouds, private clouds, hybrid clouds, and custom clouds. So there's just all sorts of different types of clouds. Private, obviously, it's just for that organization or government or whoever is using it. Public cloud, just, everybody can get to it. You pay, what do I pay? I pay $1.99 a month for OneDrive. So I needed more space on OneDrive. I pay $1.99 a month for it. And that's available to the general public. Dropbox is free, up to so much. Google is free up to so much. OneDrive is free up to so much space, but I ended up needing more than that. Hybrid clouds make up 2 or more clouds, so part of it's custom, part of it's public. And it still has the same connection features. Custom clouds, healthcare or media, they can be private or public, but they're customized for a specific industry. Even education might even have its own cloud. Then at home, we have different technologies. We've got all of these new, in fact, I'm going to need a new, probably a refrigerator here pretty soon. And I do not want my appliance connected to the wireless. I just don't. I suppose I should want to do that, but I want to come home and I don't want to have to worry about my appliance being connected to the network or any of that. So, but you can have your appliances integrated. One of my friends has a wireless crock pot so that she can monitor it because she has had bad experience with crock pots in the past, and this just kind of helps her manage her crock pot. You can have an oven cook a meal for you. You can have your smart home technology. We've got video that you can have over the, what is the Ring or other video doorbells that you can have set up as your smart home technology. So there's many of those things. And Packet Tracer actually does have some pretty cool IoT and home technology things that you can put together in a Packet Tracer, so you can actually set up a home set network and have everything set up and kind of look at it and see if you like it. It's pretty cool how they have it set up. And then there's power line networking, where you can use a standard power adapter and connect to a LAN wherever there's an electrical outlet. So this is a new trend that you can work with. So you've got a power line connection or a wired. And then there's wireless broadband. I have wireless line of sight broadband. And I have I don't have an antenna outside my house, but I have a satellite connecting to another dish to get me connectivity. Network security. Security threats. Oh, there's always so many new security threats out there. It's always going to be a part of it. Security is just an important part of networking and programming and pretty much anything computer science. And if you know a little bit of programming and programming security and network security, you'll be in good shape. So what you want to be able to do is recognize external and internal threats. Not necessarily you don't have to recognize them all, but you want to have a device that will be able to block all of that. So we've got an external threat that could be, you could have a firewall in place to block it. You might have internal threats, which might have antivirus software or different techniques that you use to keep your host internally safe. So here's some external threats. We've got viruses, worms, Trojan horses. We've got spyware. We've got 0-day. We've got denial of service, identity theft. There's so many different things. Internal threats. We might have a lost or stolen device. We might have misuse by employees. We might have employees that have malicious intent. You might have an employee on the internal network that downloads or uses a USB drive from a student that they didn't realize they had a spyware on their USB. So, there's so many different things that can happen. And so you want to be sure that you are using the proper software, hardware, whatever to control it all. And it's hard to stay on top of it. You just constantly, it's just a constant, you have to stay on top of things. So you have to have a multiple layered solution. It's not just one solution. It's not like a one solution fits all for everything. So you want to have an antivirus or anti-spyware on your computers or on devices, and then probably like some sort of firewall. And at home, you can have a software firewall. In business, you might have a hardware firewall set up. So Jim Conley has a class all about firewalls. So you can, that's one that will be taken next year. It's PCT 275, I believe. More, we've got a dedicated, so on a larger network, so this is kind of what I alluded to before. So on the larger network, we have a dedicated firewall. We also have access control lists, intrusion prevention. There's going to be a whole process where you have a document that you create that is your security document that has all of this in place. Virtual private networks. I know at Rock Valley we have VPNs set up so that, you know, with everybody working from home, they only have so many VPNs set up so that people who need to access our internal education databases, student information, that they can do that. So we'll talk about all of this later. Access control list, we might briefly talk about it in this semester, but that's definitely Cisco 2 and Cisco 3. And then the IT professional. This is just, you know, the opportunities that you can get through Cisco NetAcad. I'm telling you, for me, Cisco has changed my life. Back in 2001, this was a while ago, I started the certified Cisco instructor program, and I have been just very happy with Cisco and in their instructor process, and it has kept me employed for a very, very long time. And the CCNA really does put your resume on the top of the list. So with version 7, they have revamped their certifications a little bit. So instead of having 2 certifications, the CCNA is it. That's how there is no longer a CCENT. It's just the Cisco Certified Network Associate. So CCNA. And then you can also get into the Cisco Certified Specialist. You can do CCNP, which is the professional, CCIE. So we kind of have like the master's level and then the doctoral level of the certifications, but there's also DevNet that you can use, and these are coming up in the future. And it just depends on what you want to focus on. So CCNA is networking, basically. You've got your foundational information on networking. It's IP addressing, security, OSI layers, TCP/IP, so protocols and rules, programming routers and switches, all sorts of stuff. Wireless virtualization. So this is kind of everything networking for the CCNA. And then there's jobs. So you can go to NetAcad, and under student resources, there is the employment talent bridge. Oh, I'm sorry, not employment, talent bridge. And that has the employment opportunities. And you can actually search for Cisco jobs, but I would do the talent bridge and find that. We also have at rockvalleymyrvc.org, which we try and put employment opportunities there. We haven't had too many this summer. We had quite a few in the beginning of the summer, and now it's kind of leveled off. But as we get those, we will email you and put them on MyRVC. And then there's a lab researching. You can research this on your own. I did not require this. And that is it. There is a module practice. You do not have to do this quiz, but I would say that you probably want to take that quiz so that you are ready for the exam for modules 1 through 3. So we just went through all of the different networks. I'm not going to go through. There are new terms. There's a bunch of terms that you may or may not have known. So go over all those terms, and if you have any questions, email me.